The State Transportation and Services Department would be the state motor pool. It would manage and maintain all transportation vehicles. It would retrofit any obtained vehicle and recycle it into transportation. For example, when a state trooper police cruiser is retired, it would be turned over to the Transportation and Services Department, where the vehicle would be retrofitted and recycled into a transportation vehicle. This would be done on site or at one of several state vocational colleges that have auto studies. The State Property Management and Maintenance Department would perform any and all property management, maintenance, and service functions relative to real estate, including HVAC maintenance and repairs, plumbing, electrical, landscaping, landscape maintenance, and so on. To understand inefficiencies and bleeders, think of a house on fire. The fire department comes out and is spraying water on the fire. The only problem is they need more water coming out of the hose because their hose has holes in it. So what is the solution? Do you force more water through the hose, thereby leaking and wasting more water? Or do you plug up the holes, the bleeders, and eliminate the waste? By the same token, to understand how small bleeding here and there adds up, think about a parking meter, which only takes nickels, dimes, and quarters. But those nickels, dimes, and quarters add up. The same applies to savings. A little here, a little there, it all adds up. Simply put, we must tighten our belts without cutting services. We must do more with less. We must be like single mothers, doing whatever is needed within our means to accomplish the extraordinary. A single mother does not gripe nor complain about what she does not have. A single mother just gets it done. The money the government spends is your money. And government officials should spend your money like it was their own. For example, why buy when we can recycle? Why buy new when we can get used? Have you ever heard of a government employee searching on eBay to find and or to buy something the government is planning to purchase or needs? Yet I assure you many families shop on eBay and at thrift stores. So why can't government? Make no mistake, the employees are the ones who make it work. They are the biggest asset. They know where the bleeders, the inefficiencies are, but department heads and supervisors don't care what someone beneath them thinks or has to say, as it might be determined that the person in charge is really the problem. However, there needs to be a hiring freeze in government, especially in our state, where no new hires would occur without the express written approval of 1, the head of the department, agency, or branch, 2, the state finance director, and 3, the governor himself. When someone quits, retires, or is terminated, that person's duties should be redistributed without hiring a replacement. That is the way it's done in business to save money. I have never supported doing anything relative to the human element until any and all efficiencies have been identified and corrected. Then and only then, if further cuts were needed, would I consider personnel-related cuts. But even before cutting an employee, I would try to get the board and management to agree to pay cuts and then see if the employees would also agree to pay cuts, thereby not having to lay off anyone. This is known as shared sacrifice. To that extent, a couple of weeks ago, it was announced that the judiciary throughout the state was eliminating 150 jobs. 35 of those jobs were eliminated in my home county, Jefferson County. I assure you that not one single justice, judge, or support staff was asked to take a pay cut or even contemplated taking one, so that 150 people would not lose their jobs. Furthermore, I assure you the justices, the judges, and their staffs are not going to work harder or longer hours. To prove my point, it was recently announced that they are going to reduce the work week for the courts down to 4 days. Simply put, these personnel cuts combined with the court work week reductions are going to translate into nothing more than slower justice. For example, one high-profile murder trial has already been indefinitely postponed due to these cuts. The human element should not be cut in any way whatsoever unless and until all solutions have been explored. With shared sacrifice, everyone, the executive branch, the legislative branch, House and Senate, the judicial branch, district, circuit, criminal, appeals, and Supreme Courts, everyone gives a little and the state saves a lot. In the end, all pay cuts are restored as the budget allows, but the employees get their pay restored first. And then everyone else gets their pay restored. This is how it's done in the private sector and how I did things when turning around troubled companies. The simple fact of the matter is that our public officials, elected, appointed, and employed, including the politicians, want commitment from everyone, while they themselves are only involved. My daddy summed up the difference by teaching me about ham and eggs. The chicken that laid the egg was involved. The pig the ham came from, he was committed. These are just a few examples of how the state of Alabama can save money without cutting services. In addition, opportunity costs are another area where the state is being negatively impacted financially. For example, the state does not need to be in the retail business as it already gets the tax revenue from liquor sales. So why do we need the risk and expense associated with being in the retail distribution of liquor? We don't. Therefore, the state needs to sell off its almost 200 ABC stores. The same is true relative to the federal government and the United States Postal Service. The federal government needs to sell it off and privatize it. Additionally, the state has over $2 billion in cash. The opportunity costs associated therewith are staggering, to say the least. Alabama needs to use some of that cash to form and capitalize a state-owned bank. North Dakota has had its own state-owned bank for almost 100 years, and its performance and contribution to the state of North Dakota has been phenomenal, to say the least. A state-owned bank would be the depository for all state funds. Furthermore, the state-owned bank would be like the Federal Reserve. It would lend money to state businesses and individuals, and it would stimulate our state economy. As I alluded to earlier, the biggest problem the state has on the horizon is the huge healthcare tsunami heading its way. I equate it to the old saying, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. The same applies to maintenance versus repairs. Wellness and health care must go hand in hand to mitigate the intermediate and long-term cost impact to the state. Let me give you some statistics and you will understand why I have used the word tsunami. Global obesity has nearly doubled since 1980. The southeastern United States is known as the stroke belt and the diabetes belt. Alabama is ranked number 2 in obesity. About 2/3 of states have opt-out provisions for physical education. A recent study came out concluding that obesity is a direct result of lifestyle and choices and not genetics. So what does obesity have to do with the healthcare tsunami that every state, including Alabama, is facing? A lot. Since Alabama is already being hit and will be hit even more by the medical costs associated with diabetes and heart-related illnesses, given our state's very high obesity rate. How do we avoid it? What can we do? We can encourage and subsidize prevention and penalize irresponsibility. Prevention includes subsidizing approved preventive measures to stop addictive and irresponsible lifestyle choices like smoking and excessive drinking. Additionally, subsidizing the use of fitness facilities is needed provided that the facilities are used for the expressed single purpose of improving one's physical fitness, health, and well-being. How these subsidies are paid is in and of itself its own speech. I will say, however, that the town and city park and recreation centers and the YMCA network should be engaged so that regardless of where someone lives, everyone has access to health and fitness facilities. In the long run, prevention will be far less expensive than the alternative. And prevention is just one part of the solution. We must discourage irresponsible decisions, self-inflicted circumstances, and irresponsible lifestyle choices. I know something about prevention, which is far better than the alternative. I used to drink. I have not drank in 19 years. I used to smoke. I have not smoked in 19 years. I was a walking heart attack. I used to be 100 pounds heavier than I am now. I used to have a 48-inch waist. I had a 17.5-inch neck and wore a 52 coat. I used to tell my wife that I was portly, and she would tell me I was porky. The human body is very forgiving if you give it the chance. The lungs rejuvenate once someone stops smoking, and the liver rejuvenates once someone stops excessive drinking. How I lost my weight? Exercise. Now I cycle and swim. I am more conscious of what I eat, yet I eat like a horse.